All right, here we are. I already mentioned it on the basketball podcast, but if you haven't seen the basketball podcast, thank you guys so much for being patient. I caught a bad case of feeling ill, like literally on and off the past 3 weeks. So it was more like me telling Corstian and Diego last minute, can't record this week. So thank you guys so much for your patience. Corstian, been a minute. How was Easter? How was everything? What are you looking forward to with the draft?
It's been a good week, I guess, in the middle of my next book. So I know last time I talked about Project Hail Mary and how it's a good book, but in the middle of this other one that I've been reading for a while. Anyways, NFL-wise, though, the big thing with the Broncos is they did trade their first-round pick for Jalen Waddle, which I'm happy with. And last time we also talked about how back half of the first round wide receivers don't necessarily have that guaranteed hit rate that we oftentimes see with the receivers drafted in the first round. And so spending that first round pick that Broncos might have drafted for a wide receiver instead of being Jalen Waddle, which is a guy that we already kind of know what we're going to get out of, is exciting. And then obviously Broncos still got other picks in the draft, but we'll kind of just have to see how the board starts to fall and maybe who slips, who gets drafted early. But I don't know. I mean, it's kind of nice not having to stress about a first-round bust, I guess, draft pick or guys getting sniped right before you in the first round, especially because that's the most exciting round.
Yeah, Bears in a unique position. We'll talk about what I think they should do at 25. And that should be fun because usually they've been picking top 10, top 15. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of prospects you're excited about. But once you get to top 20, then you got to use a little bit more discernment. Mm-hmm. And for me, what's more exciting now in the draft is not round 1, but rounds 2 through 5. Mm-hmm. Who falls? What kind of talents are still there? Usually the teams that dominate those rounds, I feel like, have really good scouting departments and have sustainable success. So I'm really excited to see this personally. But let's jump on it. We have the PFF mock draft simulator up, and we'll start right away. I think we've been talking about it all off season. Us, pretty much the whole NFL. There's a full consensus on who's going to be the number 1 overall pick. No brainer. He's already downloading the playbook from what's been reported. Fernando Mendoza is my selection for the first overall pick. I think just a little bit of scouting analysis here. I think he's the most equipped quarterback besides Caleb Williams to survive a rebuilding situation. Mm-hmm. You think about what he's done at Cal and Indiana. He's had a lot of football experience, football games played. I know that was kind of your question mark with Anthony Richardson. And he's had a lot of success in different systems. If you watch him at Cal, he's had a lot of success. It's just his team wasn't as dominant as it was in Indiana. So I think, especially if you give him Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Tyler Linderbaum, you have some pieces there. It's still a rebuilding situation because, they have a lot of needs on defense. They still have Matt Crosby. I get it. But this is the most important position you got to get right. And I think it's only going to help if he sits behind Kirk Cousins for half the season, quarter of the full season, with the expectation of jumping right away. I think he can start right away and survive the season, but I think it's better that he just sits and learn the game, learn how Kirk approaches at the pro level. As somebody who wasn't as highly touted as him, how he managed to have such generous contracts over the years and find success in his own right. So easy pick.
Yeah, and I feel and that's kind of everybody believes, like you mentioned earlier too. Just everybody expects Mendoza to be the number 1 overall pick. A crazy, interesting thing could be if they traded back. Thinking that they have a lot more work to do than just a quarterback. But I don't think that they'll actually trade back or anything. So I mean, it makes sense there. And I also agree with the Kirk Cousins. Probably will see a fair amount of playtime this season as well. But going on to the second overall pick with the Jets, I'll just have them pick Arvel Reese. I mean, kind of argued as like probably the best, at least defensive player potentially in this draft. And a consideration for me here was maybe going Carnell Tate for the Jets, just because sure you got like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall is kind of like good playmakers for your team. After that, it's quite a lot of question marks for like Adonai Mitchell. We've seen highs and lows from him. Isaiah Williams, Arian Smith are guys that are like, I mean, they're kind of exciting maybe to see what they could do after they got drafted. Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis have kind of been in this mixed mingle of who is the actual number 2 behind Breece Hall. Mason Taylor was a rookie, and so there's questions about going wide receiver, but here they just have so many things I think they can do better at that, getting a solid defense, defensive player who can really play off ball or just as a pure pass rusher, as I think a lot of people have been talking about, would be a good pick for the Jets right here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer selection.
Mm-hmm.
You could go Sonny Styles here, but I don't think it's a specific immediate need. I think edge rusher is the more important need here, which Sonny Styles can do, but I think if you have a guy like Reese who could play pretty much everywhere too, like it's just get the best player available. I think it's a good thinking here. And it got me thinking on the Cardinals itself. Like, what would I do if I was looking here? And I know it's going to sound like it's counterintuitive because look at all the prospects here. We've literally last week spent like, if they spent it on an offensive tackle, they'll be well equipped for the quarterback of the future, because I believe after Fernando Mendoza, it's a huge drop off personally. I wouldn't go after Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeier, but I wouldn't touch them in the first round at all. But I'm not going to go with offensive tackle. I'm not going to go with Maaga or like some of these other guys. I think they should go Sonny Styles here. And here's the reason why. You look at their depth chart, and their linebackers and edges are currently Darius Robinson, Cody Simon, Mac Wilson, Zaven Collins. Not a lot to write home about. And you want to rebuild their defense outside of a Josh Sweat, Buda Baker, Andrew Wingard, who had a good season last year. You need somebody that can be the quarterback of the defense and be ready to lead that defense when needed. You have a lot of good pieces. You have a lot of pieces in place. You don't need Jeremiah Love. You got James Conner and Algier. You got Marvin Harrison. You still invested in him. Michael Wilson, Kendrick Bourne. The receivers are set. Trey McBride, you know how I love him. I think you're trying to get as much talent as possible around the team and support this young quarterback. And my opinion is you can get tackle early second.
Yeah. And I think you couldn't really go wrong going, getting one of who you think is the best tackle in the draft at this point, picking at number 3. Or like kind of like with the Jets, there's a lot of things that the Jets can work on with offense, but ultimately I have them going defense just because again, there's a lot I think both the Cardinals and the Jets can do to improve. I mean, looking at both their records, right? But so good pick there. Number 4 with the Titans, I will have them draft David Bailey. I feel like they're in a situation where their offense feels a lot further ahead than the 3 teams that we just talked about before, where you have a guy who you think is your superstar quarterback in Cam Ward, while Pollard and Spears aren't like home run running backs, they're all right enough in my eyes, where they could be maybe like a combined 1,200, 1,300 rush yard type of season, which I think is okay enough for them. You have Calvin Ridley, who is Wandale Robinson, who's coming off a good season. Alec Aymenor and Chimere Dike, who are both going into their second years. And so it's like you have a pool of a lot of question mark wide receivers that I think have a good opportunity to maybe take the next step going into next season. Following that up, I mean, O-line, I'm actually a pretty big fan of. And so while there's a lot of offensive line prospects I think they could have gone with, I mean, that are good. They're in a nice position being a top 5 pick in the draft that doesn't really have an O-line issue. So, they're able to get basically an argued like best potential pass rusher with this pick right here.
I like it. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why would you pick him over Remain?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have the Cowboys looking around for David Bailey. Ideally, it's a really deep edge class, and it's just: do you want power? Do you want finesse? Do you want speed? It all depends on what you're looking for on the specific team, where the rankings of these guys will change. So I think it's a great selection. Personally, if it were me, I would go Jeremiah Love.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of support Cam Ward with a proven running game.
Mm-hmm.
But I see why you went with David Bailey. I don't think there's a wrong selection here.
Yeah.
And plus, there's a lot of backs I like personally behind Jeremiah Love that aren't really being talked about second, third, fourth round. So there's still opportunities to upgrade at that position, and you don't need to do it with the 4th overall pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking, like offense, you have at least a handful of playmakers that I think could be average to above average in production that I think the defense probably needs a lot more help than what we have with the offense, especially just Cam Ward going into year 2. I think we'll just see a jump, hopefully, in play just from that end too.
Yeah. Giants, interesting spot. Like at first glance, if you look at the depth chart, they're like, oh, Rory Robertson Harris and Dexter Lawrence and Darius Alexander. I don't like that front. But then you realize it's all mixed matched because you have Kayvon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter listed on the depth chart 1-2, like as your linebackers, and Brian Burns, like kind of in a 3-4 setting. So it's like, okay, I don't like that. But if I'm considering the Giants situation and how much they invested in Jackson Dart, they traded up to get him. And you're looking at some of the receivers, like Darius Slade and Darnell Mooney are nice. Calvin Austin's nice. Jalen Hyatt's nice. Calvin Austin and Jalen Hyatt, maybe to a lesser degree. You got Isaiah Likely, invested a lot in him. Cam's got to be coming off of injury. I just invested a lot in this guy, Dart. Let me surround him with as much talent as possible. And I'm going to do it with the best playmaker in the draft from the wide receiver standpoint, Carnell Tate. He's my clear number 1. There might be a close number 2, but I don't see any receiver better than him in the draft. And I think if you have him and Malik Neighbors coming off of an ACL, you take a lot of pressure off of Malik Neighbors. You give Dart a lot of options. This is going to open up a lot for what the Giants want on offense and make sure Jackson Dart's in a position to succeed.
Yeah. I was like, obviously, I think a skill position of almost any sort really helps them out here. Obviously, they got Isaiah Likely at the tight end position now, so it's probably not, a move to try and get Kenyon Sadiq. But yeah, I mean, again, like you said, outside of Neighbors, it's like these guys have just kind of been average, wide receivers that it's like, I mean, they can be all right. It feels like the last year's wide receiver room was really carried by Wan'Dale Robinson after Neighbors went down, and now he's on the Titans. And so now it's like, in theory, it was kind of like the complaint I had about the Jets when they first got Aaron Rodgers. About how, if Garrett Wilson went down, it's like, who do you got? And that was kind of what made me nervous about the Jets a few years ago. Similarly, I think with the Giants, it's if Neighbors goes down, who do you got? And I think you made a good pick with Carnell Tate there. With the next pick, though, the Browns here, I think they'll follow similar path to the Giants and go Mekhi Lemon, who I think is considered by a handful to be the second best wide receiver in this class. And I think I just look at the wide receiver room of the Cleveland Browns, and it's like, what? Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman. Dude, who's their wide receiver 3? Browns.
I have him on my dynasty team. Isaiah Bond, probably.
Yeah, Isaiah Bond. And you got Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash, right? And so it's like, these guys, I mean, like, Cedric Tillman might be good, but he keeps on getting hurt. like Harold Fannin Jr. as a rookie tight end was your best receiving option last season, and if you're gonna, whether or not Shedeur Sanders is your starting quarterback throughout the entirety of the season next year, right? Like, you got to have something better than Harold Fannin, or at least something in the same caliber, or something like that.
You got to have more around him. Yeah.
And so I think Mekhi Lemon ends up being the pick here. Just immediately can be wide receiver 1 for this Cleveland Browns team.
The Washington Commanders are steaming because they would have loved to add another weapon outside of Terry McLaurin for Jaden Daniels. So this is at the point where Jeremiah Love is tempting, but you just got JCM and you got Rachaad White and you got Jerome Ford. You have a lot of guys that can contribute. I don't necessarily think you need to go running back here to upgrade the roster. You've thrown a ton of money at defense this year. Like Deron Payne, Odafe Owe. Like I know Payne was on the team previously, but like you spent like Amik Robertson, you spent a ton of money to try and like re-sign some of these guys. So part of me is like, I like Ruben Bain, but I like Moaga. It's kind of like which direction you want to go to, because you look at their tackle position as Josh Connerly and like outside of Laramie Tunsil, not much else. So, but that defense was awful that season. And I think you have to go Ruben Bain here. Because because you put a lot into Odafe Owe for kind of the production he got. And if that like falls flat on his face, what do you have? You got nothing. I think if you have 5 years of control with a guy like Ruben Bain, who I consider one of the best pass rushers in this draft behind Reese, I think it's a good pick here.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably like the first like official area where we diverge in our thoughts on like the players. I do think Jeremiah Love should be the pick here. Namely because you mentioned like JCM, right, and Rachaad White, but like JCM, both of those guys are not good pure like downhill runners, is ultimately what it is. Jerome Ford is okay as a downhill runner at the very best, I think. Probably slightly below average actually as a downhill runner, And so it's you got 3 guys who really can't officially just on a down-to-down basis, you can't run the ball with really. And then you got Jeremiah Love, who's the guy that you pretty much can insert and be like, he's just going to be a 3-down back, and occasionally have, JCM as a rotational guy that comes in, and then we have Rachaad White come in for certain passing downs. But so I personally would have gone to Jeremiah Love, but I understand the need of defense as well with that. Plus, hopefully, just for the Commanders' sake, hopefully they're just not as injured this upcoming season, because I think that was a huge detriment to how their season ended up basically collapsing after being so good the year prior. But going on to the Saints pick, do you have anything to say that? Or
yeah, I think just one thing. It's another thing where like a lot of the household names for the running backs being talked about in the draft, I think it's out of order. And I think if Washington wants to upgrade there, this is me saying I don't think you need the 7th overall pick to do that. I do think there are players later in the draft you can get that will not be Jeremiah Love, but can be a Kyle Manung guy, can be like a lesser version of Quinshon Judkins. Like there are guys that are still talented there. I just don't think they're being talked about enough. And if Adam Peters and the scouting department did their jobs, they'll probably target that like early 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick, get the value there. But I just don't think you could pass up on a talent like Ruben Bain. But I do see the logic in Jeremiah Love. It's kind of a set and forget it. You don't have to worry about it. You help out Jaden Daniels. So
because I feel like sometimes like you do see that logic of like you can get guys later in the draft, but like imagine we told that to the Lions when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, being like, you're really taking him in the 1st round. Like there are
it can work both ways. Yeah.
And so it is that give and take, and with a guy who people have thought might be a top 5 pick in Jeremiah Love, being able to get him beyond that at any point, I think, will be really any team that gets him from this point on, I think, is getting a tremendous steal, because personally, I think Jeremiah Love is the best player in this class. I mean, just he happens to be the running back, or be a running back, which is a lesser value position. But yeah. Now going on with the New Orleans Saints. Here, I think there's like a couple directions they could go. I think like one option here, not saying this is the pick, is taking Jordan Tyson, because I feel like of like the wide receivers in this class, it feels like Lemon, Tate, and Tyson are kind of in that like people's image of that first tier of wide receiver. And I feel like it's less like, feels like less assurance, like taking guys down the like board, like Omar Cooper Jr., like Kevin Concepcion, like Denzel Boston. Because I mean, I look at the offense, right, and it's like, it's Chris Olave, and who else? Like,
You don't have Shaheed anymore. That's a good point.
Right. Yeah, you got Olave at one, Devon Vele, who, I mean, I like him. I mean, he was on the Broncos. He played good there, but him being your wide receiver too isn't all that exciting. You did get Travis Etienne. You feel like you got your guy with Tyler Shuck at quarterback now. I feel like you're in this phase of like your defense is starting to kind of like right itself in terms of like the age of players, because I feel like for a while it was an aging defense that wasn't getting any cheaper for some reason. But now it's like maybe you test out, see if your defense can continue what they did at the end of last season, and then make your offense just as, like, even stronger. And so, I guess I do have them going Jordan Tyson here, like looking at it all. Just simply because I feel like of the weaknesses of the offense, it seems like that may be the strongest. And, that doesn't still mean that Vele or Mason Tipton can still like find play time as wide receiver 3 in this offense. But it's basically used to give Shuck a solid wide receiver 2 to play alongside Chris Olave.
I like the intents. I don't like the pick number you allocated for him.
Oh yeah, I don't like it either.
I think you could trade down and still get Tyson. That was the
Yeah, but I mean, we're not trading down in this mock draft. Like,
right, exactly, right. So I'm just talking about what I would do if I'm the Saints, and I'm thinking about doing this like in a real draft, right? So like trade down to the mid-10s, mid-20s, get a 4th, 5th round pick if you know you're going with Tyson, and deal with that. I think this is a prime spot where, like, if somebody wants a Jeremiah Love or like a different player, they would trade up at this point going forward. If it falls the way it does.
Yeah.
As far as the team fit, absolutely 100% agree with you. They have to do this from the team need standpoint. If it were me, I probably would have gone with an edge here. But considering the receivers they have, it's not anything crazy.
Yeah, and I think like what's holding me back from like edge is like Carl Granderson and like Chase Young. They're not elite, but they're like kind of like those serviceable guys, and it's almost like they're really good run stop edge players, and so they don't necessarily generate the pressure. And so you're like, I'm the Saints. I feel like you're more in a position where you want to get a rotational edge guy, which isn't necessarily what you're looking for in round 1. I mean, like,
overall pick, yeah.
With are you using your 10th overall or 8th overall, actually, like on a rotational, clear passing down edge guy, or every single down you could go with wide receiver. Because then, like, their offensive line, I think, is decent enough. They have a relatively solid secondary, so you're not taking delay and you're not taking downs necessarily. I mean, unless you want a potential game breaker in Caleb Downs, right? But yeah. But I do agree, this is probably a little bit too high for where you actually want to pick Tyson, but for the sake of we're not trading down, this is where I have him going.
Chiefs. Sorry, buddy, I'm not going to take Love here. It's tempting, but I think with the running backs they have with Walker and then what I think of Brashard Smith, I
Mhm.
don't think they need to spend a top 10 pick
Oh yeah.
on Love for their team. I was gonna say Moaga and just forget about it because they
Mhm.
need the protection, but then I saw Caleb Downs here,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking about what he could be like in in a Spagnuolo scheme, and they have what Gilman and Connor, who are great players. But when you think about what's in their secondary and what Spagnuolo like thrives off of, it's having multiple guys where he can use interchangeably. And Caleb Downs is one of the best back seven players in the draft. Arguably, you could say he's the best defender in the draft,
Mhm.
but I probably wouldn't go that far. I think he's the next playmaker, and you cannot pass up on him. So I'm gonna change what I was originally gonna do and go with Caleb Downs.
Mhm. Wait, so who did you originally have them taken then?
I was gonna take Moaga.
Oh, Muaga. Okay.
Yeah, because I just don't trust Jalen Moore on that side of the line.
Mhm. Yeah, I mocked them with Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU.
Okay.
So I mean, we're kind of on a similar page there, right? I think cornerback is widely a bigger weakness than the safety position specifically, which is why I went Delane over Downs, even though Downs is probably a better player. Because who did they trade away or lose to the Rams again? What's his name? Trent McDuffie. Like,
Yeah.
he alone was pretty much the only valid cornerback in this secondary or in this defense, I guess.
But then they also lost Watson too.
Yeah, but it's like a guy who you're kind of having typically play in space at like the safety position versus a guy you're expecting to be manned up on someone. I feel like they fill different roles, right? But I mean, so like I said, I agree that secondary as a whole was a huge issue for the Chiefs. It was kind of interesting how we like diverted there, though. But anyways, I will go on with the next pick, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. Here, it's an interesting thing. I got to look at. Remember, I had them going edge rusher here in my own personal mock draft, but I don't know if I'll have them take an edge with who's on the board. I think with the Bengals here, I'll have them take Jeremiah Love.
I knew it. I was like, at some point you gotta take him. I knew you were chopping at the bit,
right? And like Chase Brown has been a pretty solid running back. Like for the Bengals, I think it ultimately comes down just to the fact that Jeremiah Love is such an elite prospect that I mean, you look at what the Falcons did with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, right? Like, Algier was coming off a 1,000-yard season, and everybody's like, "Oh, they got running back all set. They're probably not taking Robinson." And then they go ahead and do that anyways, and everybody's like, "Huh?" And I mean, like Algier's been when he's been called up to play, but Robinson is that premier athlete that you go with the best, right? And that be surprised Bengals do happen to Love, and Love does that spot. That like one we still like a some split between and Love just because still was inefficient over the past. But ultimately it's one of those best player availables. You just got to take the superstar, and that's who it happens to be.
Just imagine that. Jeremiah Love, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. Like, that's crazy. Might not have a defense, but you're going to have a 500-yard offense every single week.
Yeah. Yeah. In my personal mock draft, I had Ruben Bain falling to them at 10. And so I was like, that would be kind of like, that would have been the guy that I felt like probably it like fits best with, because wait, I'll tell you like where'd you draft Bain? You had him. Oh yeah, so I I had Commanders going Jordan Love instead of Bane where you had. And so that kind of changed up my draft.
Yep. So I kind of threw a wrench on the plans there.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Miami Dolphins. Can I split this pick into like 5 picks? I just think you go Moaga here and just don't even think about it because everywhere is a need. Like I know they say wide receiver, guard, and DB. I could have gone Delane. I could have gone like the other wide receiver. I just think you get the best player available, especially in the first round. You have a top 20 pick to make here. You're not picking until the end of the 30s. Just pick the best guy out of the bunch. Just get a lot of really good players, regardless of need, and just make a good team again.
Yeah,
that's the priority. It's not like should I go Moago or should I go Delane? Like, just pick the best player. And Moago is one of the best tackles in this class.
Yeah, and like on top of that too, it's like obviously worst case would be that this head coaching regime that they got doesn't work out for them. But let's say it doesn't work out. They still suck for the next couple of years and they fire the head coach or whatever. It's like you want specific staple guys that should be good regardless really of the scheme to fall in rather than potentially taking a guy further down the board and being like, hey, this guy is a potential scheme or immediate need fit for our team. But then it's like the following coaching staff is like, hey, this guy doesn't really fit where we're going in direction wise, and it just feels like a wasted pick. But with a guy like Mwaga, you're getting a guy that you expect to be there regardless of who is part of the coaching staff, which I think is good. Next up with the Dallas Cowboys here, I'll have them go Mansour Delane from LSU, the cornerback. Cowboys cornerbacks have been sucking. I mean, they don't have Trayvon Diggs anymore. I mean, he really wasn't that great anyways. So I think even if you had him on the team, it's still kind of a need. And so you get a guy that you're hoping to be kind of your CB1 and can really keep your defense competitive and not give up big plays.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. Rams. I think the defense is pretty much set. Like I don't see a single weakness on the roster, and it's kind of crazy. We talked about the trades they made for the Chiefs cornerbacks. I'm not going to go with the Oregon safety. I could totally see Sean McVay say, Kenyon Sadiq, come to LA. This is a perfect assignment for you. And that's so enticing.
Yeah.
But in reality, if I was just like not looking to see how unfair can I make my team and knowing I made like 3 tight end sets work with the guys I had, I'd be more worried about protecting Matthew Stafford, and I'm going Spencer Bono. But the Rams could easily go with like just this athletic young tight end and just rebuild their team that way and just not even forget about it. Can you imagine Kenyon Sadiq and Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee in 3 tight end sets? Like they're all unguardable in different areas of the field. That would just be unfair.
Yeah. It's a lot to manage for the tight end positions. I mean, you even used like a pretty high draft pick, I think, on Terrence Ferguson last year as well.
Right.
Obviously, like we saw like what the Michael Myers and Brock Bauer situation where it's like you spend a second on Myers.
Michael Mayer.
But then also it's like you just signed Parkinson's on a whatever extension, and then you just signed Tyler Higbee to an extension. And it's like, is that really the best use? I mean, at that point, you're just drafting Sadiq to be a big slot is almost how it would feel, which I mean isn't the worst thing, but yeah.
So we're not even 30 minutes in, and we got a Jordan Love reference for the Saints out of Corstian, and then we got a Michael Myers reference for the Raiders over here. This is great. I love it.
Yeah. Next pick though, the Baltimore Ravens. I have them going. I apologize for not knowing this guy's name. Olai Vavega Ione, the interior offensive line from Penn State. I mean, like, O-line, I feel like has just kind of been like has been like up and down, I think, for this team. And now with probably losing your center, if the weird contract stuff, right, with how the Raiders were having to get Max Crosby back, basically. We're assuming that they get, what, isn't it, Tyler Linderbaum?
Yeah.
But and obviously, so like Ravens losing him to free agency, regardless of the fact that we don't know if he'll actually officially be free. I don't know, the contract situations. We'll see. Their interior offensive line does happen to be weaker because of that, and so you get who I think is probably the best, at least interior offensive lineman, to kind of reinforce that part of your offense. I think is just the move to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched him a lot, to be honest, but I like the pick. I wonder if he's somebody that could play center. So you can slide him interchangeably. That makes sense in my mind if they spend the pick on him. I certainly think you would want that for Lamar Jackson, given you've changed offensive coordinators. I could also see them go defense, have a guy for Stallworth to start off Jesse Minters. So I could have seen him go safety personally, or corner. I was really surprised they re-signed Marlon Humphrey, but here we are.
Yeah.
In regards to Tampa, kind of in an interesting spot because they started out the year hot and then they slowly had injuries just hit them. I'm looking at their DBs. I'm really concerned.
Yeah.
Not. I think they're set. So I don't think this is a great spot to pick Dinerman. They could go tackle. I'm not ecstatic about him personally. Then you look down the board and Messidor will be a guy that I would be really intrigued by. I'm decided between him and Sadiq. And I would probably go Messidor here.
Yeah.
The reason why is I like Sadiq's talent, but I don't necessarily have him as the top tight end of his class. I don't. I think you're getting a little bit of Tyler Warren with him. I think he's better than Tyler Warren coming out. But I think with the way the league is heading, and there's some guys I like over him. There's at least two tight ends I like better than him. And I think you're better off waiting for him if you think that's waiting on them. If you think that's a weakness, then it's better on him. But I will say this. If he's playing outside of Emeka Buka and Chris Godwin as space play creators, that could be a good fit. I don't think the OC and the environment is great for him.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather spend it on the DN that I know will upgrade that front three.
Yeah. And like I've been reading kind of like what Buccaneers fans have been having to say like about what their thoughts on the draft were, and like it's predominantly like getting an edge or kind of like an elite off-ball linebacker is what their kind of main priorities are. And then right after that, it is like some type of cornerback and then maybe interior offensive line. And so I think that's a good pick that you made there. I also mocked them getting Messidor here from Miami. But yeah.
Right. So what are the New York Jets getting in return for Sauce?
Yeah. With the Jets here.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Oh man. Like I think it's another similar situation to how I did the Saints pick, and I'm probably just gonna go Omar Cooper Jr. here.
Wow.
Where it's like, I mean, you look at the board, and I mean, like, I guess maybe you could go like McCoy, like Jermod McCoy. I mean, if you want me to do that, I can do that too. But I mean, like Omar Cooper's been like projected to be like a back half of the first round type of guy. Like I was saying earlier, it's like you got a superstar defensive player with your first pick to kind of like hopefully pull things together, and now it's like kind of helping balance out what you have in the offense. And so again, I mean, like if I'm the Jets, technically, I feel like I could trade back to like I don't know, like 26 with the Bills or something, you know, and probably still get Omar Cooper. But yeah, and it feels like a Jets move to do too, or something, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I think you definitely need to. It's tough because I don't have a first round grade on Omar Cooper,
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily either, but it's like,
and I'm like, you're picking with the second pick, overall pick in the second round.
mhm.
Like, do you wait on him, but then you risk losing him if you really want? So it's just, I don't have a high grade on him personally.
Yeah.
After
Well,
Makai
because
Lemon, I have a couple different players. I have 3, 4, 5.
mhm.
But I understand the hype around him.
Right, like I think what like I mean I look down the board kind of ish, right, and I think like not saying they will, but like Pittsburgh, the Chargers, potentially the Browns if they don't go wide receiver with their first pick, the Bills, the 49ers, KC, Miami, even New England, all I think are teams that if a late first round wide receiver guy they like is available, they might snag him there. And
Yeah.
so it's like again, I think you could probably trade back if you are the Jets here, probably to like maybe early 20s, like you trade with like the Eagles and then the Eagles get some, you know, stud or whatever in like like in the midpoint of the draft instead of picking into the 20s. And so I mean that's probably the best spot if they were to trade. But like I said, like there's a lot of teams I think in the last 10 picks that might need a wide receiver. And, you know, by that point, like Cooper, Concepcion, Boston, all could be gone. Like there could be like I don't think they all should be picked within the first round, but I mean, we see teams reach for specific needs late in the first round because it's not the same talent pool as like the first half of that first round.
Yeah. Yeah. They're kind of in an interesting situation here
Mm-hmm.
with like, do we go wide receiver here or do we go somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay. Lions.
Yes.
It's clear that they need help in the front seven, and they've also lost Taylor Decker. That was an odd situation.
Mm-hmm.
Monroe Freeling is just staring at me right in the eyes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't want to pick him at this spot. If it were me, it seems like a reach here, but I'm going Caden Proctor.
Okay.
I trust him and what the Lions have built in their line. And I know I'm supposed to pick the worst possible tackle for the Lions, but what better place than to develop across from like Nay Sewell, the newly acquired K Mays, like guys that have been there a long time, like and a talented offense, and then solidify your left tackle. You can start behind Bourne for a couple games and then you just take over. And I am much higher on him than Freeling as a prospect. I know he has clear weaknesses, but I trust him and Dan Campbell's scheme.
Yeah. Yeah, and like really for me too, it's like whoever the Lions feel like at least I'm also thinking that they probably take O-line here. My draft board went differently, and so what's his name? Fano from Utah I had him taken here.
I could have also picked Fano. Like I have them both higher than Freeling.
Right, and so it's like I just think they'll probably go O-line here, especially with the issues they had. I think like last season, like because even without necessarily going O-line, like they have like the number 3 scoring offense in the league. So it's like the offensive production, I guess technically took
whoops.
a hit,
Okay.
but like it wasn't it wasn't like the worst thing, that ever could have happened to the Lions following that incredible season they had the year prior. But like I think just still like with the O-line losses they've had over the past 2 years now, I think that is a smart move for them. Although they could go defense and just kind of get extra depth, but then it's like your defensive starters, I think, are all really good. They all got hurt, and so now you just need to spend your next couple picks after the first round, I think, on quality depth.
You can't fix the team with like one first round pick. So
right.
It's like, okay, how do we structure this? How does the board fall? I like where your head's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. With the Vikings, I will have them going Dylan Thiemann, safety from Oregon. I mean, they lost their Hall of Fame safety to retirement over this course of the offseason. I think you won't get like the same quality of production necessarily, but I mean, having a guy who might be one, like who is potentially like the second or third best safety in this class after Downs, right? Like, is a nice way to at least try to fill that gap in your defense. I think. I mean, like offensively, you have a lot of really good pieces. You brought in Kyler Murray. Your O-line, barring an injury to Christian Darrisaw again, I think is good. Hawkinson, I think, is a pretty solid tight end. Sure, wide receiver 3 and beyond is, I think, a question mark after losing Jordan Naylor. But, like, you got Justin Jefferson, who personally still I think is the best wide receiver in the league. I know we discuss this all the time. But then you got Jordan Addison, who is quietly, I think, one of the better wide receiver 2s in the league as well, despite his car driving ability. And so I think getting another member of that secondary to kind of support what's already a pretty decent front 7. Like I talked about Eric Wilson during our kind of like all-pro selection episode, and how like he basically when he was healthy and playing, like the defense allowed like half a yard less per play or something. Something crazy like that. I remember you were pretty surprised too, as was I. But yeah, so that's my pick for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, pretty obvious. Just substitute for Harrison Smith.
Mm-hmm.
We love the way the board fell for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Carolina. I'm really struggling here because the type of offensive linemen they need are not like immediately on the board. And I'm looking at their defense. I'm like, I don't really have concerns with their defense. But like Denzel Boston, 31, Casey Concepcion, Lomu. I don't know. And they don't need corner because they got 2 great outside corners. I'm going to look at the center market and see what's that looking like. Okay, Rutledge I like, but like these guys you can get in the second round. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think they want to address center with this first pick.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. I don't like the fit for Kenyon Sadiq either. I'm gonna go Eli Stowers. I'm gonna go out on a limb and put him here. Nowhere near where he's probably being mocked, but to me, he's the best tight end in this class. He could block really, really well. He could run routes extremely well. I think equivalent to Kenyon Sadiq. I think he could win in man-to-man coverage, especially with the league headed into 2 tight end sets. I know they have Jason Sanders. I know they spent so long waiting on Tommy Tremble, but like especially with a guy like I think with the coach they have and the quarterback they have, you need to get multiple. You need to vary
Mhm.
your formations, especially with a shorter quarterback like Bryce Young.
Mhm.
And I think Stowers does that. So big regional draft, I know, but I think he's the guy
Yeah.
that would significantly
Mhm.
upgrade their offense, both in blocking, running, and receiving.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like if they did go offense with round one, that's probably the move you end up having to make. I think I'd almost want them to go defense, maybe, but like I mean, they did get Jalen Phillips in free agency too, who is a potential good player who could be good next season for him. But I think like I think back to the Rams game almost in the playoffs, right, with the Panthers, and it was like they started out slow, but then the game kind of turned into like a shootout, with it really coming down to that last drive.
Right.
And it's like so like tight end could help there, for sure. Maybe yeah, like you said, it is a little reach, but you get your guys where you get your guys. But then I'm also thinking like with defense getting an extra like stud wherever you find the position, potentially even at like nose tackle. I don't know how good the actual interior defensive linemen are in this class, but
I'm not high on them. I mean, Katie McDonald, I could see, but that's it.
all right. But then it's like defense to do your best to try to stop a team in one of these playoff shootouts, which might be just what the Panthers turn into for the next couple of years is a shootout type of team. I mean, I'm just basing this off of that Rams playoff game, which honestly, that was such a good game, man. But yeah, no, again, tight end at that spot, maybe you reach, but who knows? Like, what if this guy turns out to be, again, like a Trey McBride or whatever, and like it's worth taking a guy in hindsight in the first round if you really do believe in the dude. So sure, it might be a reach, but if it works for them, it works for them. Kind of like how I talk about that one Lions draft class when they got Jack Campbell as
Jack
well,
Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs.
right? Where I think a lot of people were dissing on him. Personally, I'll always take the credit of being I was satisfied, and I saw the upside of the Lions picks then, just because it's like, hey, get your guys if you believe in them. I mean, there's certain cases where I think we can see a guy's just going to be a bad player. There was a guy, I remember it was like Alex Leatherwood, I think, that the Raiders drafted
Yep.
a while ago, and everybody offered was like, really, like him, like he's not good. Like was kind of the consensus, And so that's like one thing. But then a guy's like, well, sure, Jahmyr Gibbs might be a reach, but hey, he's their guy, and we're assuming he's going to be good. Jack Campbell, maybe a reach for the first round, but we still believe he's going to be a quality off-ball linebacker. Maybe that's the case, here with your tight end. And so, as weird as it is, maybe it's the right move for them, Anyways, going on with the Dallas Cowboys, I'll have them pick Jermod McCoy. I think I'll have them continue to basically double dip on cornerback here. Because I think the cornerback room is fully replaceable for the Cowboys team here. Dude, Deron Bland sucks.
Imagine saying that like 2 years ago.
The thing is, even 2 years ago, he really wasn't that good. He caught a lot of interceptions. That's why it was such a fun duo to watch, because it was, hey, those Diggs and Bland were guys that were involved in a ton of big plays, because it was either them getting beat or it was them getting some crazy interception because they were kind of out of position and the quarterback tried to take advantage of it and they were able to make a play on that ball. And so it's like the offense, I think you're more or less okay to not really draft anybody if you're the Cowboys, right? Like you have Dak Prescott when he's healthy, which is most of the time, really. He's playing at a near MVP level. Javonte Williams, amazing resurgence last season. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, they are the best duo wide receiver, I think, heading into the season, whether or not that they actually are, but like based off of how they performed last season, I think you can argue that they were the best wide receiver duo in the league. Jake Ferguson is a more than solid tight end. O-line has been good. They've been spending quality draft picks there. You got Quentin Williams on your defensive line. You just got Rashawn Gary via trade. So you got solid guys in your front seven. Kenny Clark's there too, and so it really does come down to it. Your secondary sucks. Take as many guys as you can. We look at the Eagles, right? When they drafted 2 cornerbacks with their first 2 picks, and kind of worked out for them. And so I'm gonna have them do a similar thing here.
Yeah, I don't think the offense is fully set. I think wide receiver 3 and then the running back is probably what I would target in the draft. So I could see an argument for Denzel Boston, but ultimately I do agree with you. I do think the secondary is the bigger weakness because your offense can survive without a drafted running back or wide receiver 3 or Denzel Boston.
Yeah.
Your team cannot survive if it's constantly giving up big plays for as explosive as your offense is. Kind of writing the same story last year, this year, if you don't address it. So I do like the logic you have going there.
Yeah. Because, you could say you want to upgrade the running back position, but, Javonte Williams played 16 out of 17 games, ran for 1,200 yards at almost 5 yards a carry, plus 11 rushing touchdowns, which a lot were in the goal line. So it's
last year. But who's behind him? Malik
Davis. Again, but it's if you're drafting a guy in the first round, it's to supersede the current starter, kind of like how I talked about with Jeremiah Love, wherever he goes in the first round. It's most likely, hey, your guy's decent enough, but it's a serious upgrade.
Let me pose this scenario here. If the Cowboys are sitting at 12 and Jeremiah Love still hasn't been picked by the Commanders, would you trade up for him if you were them?
If I'm the Cowboys? I think there's an opportunity for that, but when we're talking about this current pick, at least at the position that we're at, it's Jeremiah Love is off the board, and it's hey, do we instead think of going Jadarian Price, Mike Washington, Jonah Coleman to work, in the first round at our spot instead of a wide receiver 3 or a cornerback 2? Because I think in your instance, you're talking about who's behind Javonte Williams rather than do we need a guy to upgrade beyond Javonte Williams? It's kind of how you posed your argument, Yeah. And so that's why I was because I read his stats and then you're well, who's behind him? Which is what, what's his name? Malik Davis. You have Jaden Blue, which aren't guys to really write home about. But if you're talking about who's behind Javonte Williams, then that's not a first round pick discussion that you're necessarily having for the running back position.
Yeah, but that's a we have to address it in the draft discussion.
Yeah.
So I was just posing counter arguments, but looking at the whole team and saying okay, what are our needs? How this is what you got to do as a team, right? You got to look at your needs and be okay, what are our options at this pick? Do I like these options I have available to select from at that round? And again, I think you made the right choice with DB here because when you get into the 4th and 5th round, you might luck up on a really good Eddie Jackson out of Alabama in the 5th round. But it's really rare to find that. If you find a running back in the 4th or 5th round, you see it every year. So you got to take that for what it is and be okay, it's probably not the best strategy to go Jadarian Price by pick 20. I like the player a lot, but we can get some guys down the board. We could potentially get a Mike Washington, in the draft. We don't have to do it first round.
Yeah.
All right. Steelers. They actually don't have Aaron Rodgers listed on the depth chart. Still deciding. I'm not going to pick Ty Simpson here.
Yeah. But if you were to get drafted in the first round, I think this is probably the first spot we might see a Ty Simpson draft pick.
Right. Exactly. if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, Kenyon Sadiq, Pat Fryman Darnell. I don't like that. CJ Allen, Cedric Falk, Terrell, Cassius Howell, Kenny McDonald, TJ Parker. They do have Michael Pittman, so that helps them. Am I crazy if I want to go Casey Concepcion here? Like it's not a need, like from listing, but I look at their offensive line. I'm like, I'm fine with this. Like, and maybe we can go Freeland at tackle if we're not comfortable with Broderick Jones, but I personally have KC higher than a lot of the receivers ahead of him. And I think he might be a better fit than Roman Wilson at the 3 and also be a future wide receiver for your future quarterback. Like I could see him as a number 1 option for a future quarterback there. Yeah. And he's coming into a great situation. He complements them well. He upgrades their offense. And if Aaron Rodgers comes back, like gives them more options than, oh, shoot, DK Metcalf's out for the most important games of our lives. Where's the offense going to come from? Looks like we got to go to Kenneth Gainwell again. That was a lot of Pittsburgh's offense last year. And I don't think you can go into the season with that.
Yeah. So you go, okay. Yeah, right. And it's like, at this point, too, I think you're okay drafting a more developmental wide receiver. Maybe like, developmental may not be the right word here, but like you look at how like Emeka Egbuka was drafted around like the pick 20 range, right, by the Buccaneers, which shocked I think a lot of people, myself included, because it's like, well, you have Chris Godwin, who sure he got hurt last season, but he should be coming back this year. Mike Evans is looking, he's doing his thing, and then sure Jalen McMillan is hurt pretty much all season, but prior to this, he looking really good, and so you already kind of have a core 3 of that you can transition basically over the next couple of years. You drafted Buka, and then you look a little bit further back with JSN, and it's like you already had DK Metcalf, you had Tyler Lockett, and you're like, wait, why would you you already kind of have your 2 guys? Why would you need JSN or the Emerald City route artist? Yeah. But now you look at it, right? And so, I think he's a different level. Like Concepcion is maybe not quite at the tier of those 2 players coming into the draft, but it might be a similar prospect or process of you don't need him now, but in the future it might need to. Anyways, I'll quickly go. Chargers, literally they could use everything, but I'll have them pick Monroe Freeling, just because any O-line I think is good O-line for them at this point with everything. So yeah.
What about the fact that they have Slater and all already?
Dude, I don't know if Slater will ever play a full season of football in his career. Like, that's kind of the fact of the matter right now. And it's like, and I wouldn't be like because if Slater's out, you get your stud there. I mean, like, Chargers had 0 O-line completely all last season. And so it's like, sure, even if he doesn't play, like, he's you could spend time developing him as well as an offensive lineman. Like, for a while, we saw the Cowboys do this when they had kind of like their 3 superstars, like 10 years ago. But like they would still spend decent draft capital on, offensive linemen in the first and in the second round, to just kind of work themselves around and see how they could fit between guys like Travis Frederick, Zach Martin. I forget their left tackle's name. Oh my gosh! But anyway, but you get the point, right? Where it's like,
yeah,
maybe he gets playtime at guard. I mean, I'm not saying they should necessarily do that, right? But like, it's in that same realm of like idea of like, hey, you have two good guys, but like that means you have this later-ish first-round pick guy who doesn't need to immediately go against the superstars and is able to figure out where he fits in this offensive line that sucks.
Yeah, I'm just pissed you picked him before I was considering it, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Justin Herbert needs all the protection he can get, and kind of sucks that a lot of their first-round assets they spent on Alt and Slater couldn't be utilized last year because they were both hurt at the same time. That sucks. All right, so if I'm the Eagles, I'm deciding between two players. One is if A.J. Brown eventually gets traded, Denzel Boston, I think, is the obvious fit here. The other guy is Caleb Lomu. And why I like him versus the other options is you got to think about Lane Johnson retiring.
Yeah.
You don't really have a good option behind him. And it could be as soon as next season. And I think it's worth the investment given how well the Eagles have been able to develop on the line, where it becomes a worthy first-round pick. I might go Lomu here because I do think they can survive without A.J. Brown, a wide receiver, and have a secondary option, considering they have Hollywood Brown and Devontae Smith and Wicks. Wicks is a really underrated player that they recently got. I don't think they could survive if Lane Johnson goes down. That I don't think. Not with this current alignment and constantly changing schemes. I think you do need somebody in the scheme as a swing tackle at minimum, future right tackle at maximum. Because Lane Johnson's what? He's 37?
That's crazy.
35.
Still, like,
you still got to think about him retiring next season.
Well, yeah. But, yeah, no. So, Caleb Lomu to the Eagles. Yeah. And, I mean, I have been going offensive line, too. Obviously, my offensive tackles felt differently on the board just based – I mean, I just kind of picked O-line to pick O-line at that after a certain point. But I don't know too much about the specific nuanced differences of some of these offensive linemen to really be like this.
I don't either. It's just my opinion.
So here with the Browns at 24, I also have them going offensive line, and I have them pick Blake Miller here. And I think part of this is just like the Browns lost their entire O-line in free agency, if I'm not incorrect. And it's like, sure, they got a couple guys, but like Titus Howard, Tevin Jenkins, Zion Johnson. They got Zion Johnson, a member of the worst offensive line unit in the league last season. His biggest pro, like the biggest pro about him, is he didn't get hurt. I think he was the healthiest offensive lineman on the Chargers line all last season. I don't think he missed a single game. That said, he still was not a good offensive lineman. And so it's like, again, he's a left guard, but like the point still stands that the Browns, I think, need whatever help they can get at almost any offensive position outside of tight end and running back. And so, you can get a potential staple tackle here. But anyways, I'll let you do your next pick. Or, yeah, I know Bears are coming up.
Yep, they're right here. So, yeah, I mean, surprised that they're here at this point. I couldn't have imagined going into like this upcoming season that they'll be picking on the 20s. I'm not going to do Kenny on Sadiq. I wish.
Oh, really?
They were good. CJ Allen, yeah, I don't think we need him. Yeah, because we're 4 deep on linebackers now that I feel good about. Now it becomes interesting because a lot of the edges that I liked have been taken. We have Falk, Howell. A lot of mocks are having Caden McDonald to the Bears. So I like it for 2 reasons. He's a really good run stopper. So if they're trying to find somebody that can stop the run, this is a perfect selection to make, worthy of a first-round pick. If they're finding somebody to rush the passer, that's not a strong suit. So You have that option, and then you have Caleb Banks, who has the opposite problem. He's a really good pass rusher, but he doesn't stay on the field. And I think it would be a major mistake if they went after Peter Woods, personally. So there are those options. Then there's the one I really, really like if they manage to get him, and that's D'Angelo Ponds. D'Angelo Ponds, I think, is ranked super low on this board, and they don't necessarily need him because they have Jalen Johnson, Tyreek, and Kyler. They just haven't stayed on the field. But if they get him, you don't regret it, even if your cornerback room is like 4 deep. Considering the Bears and how I've watched this past season, I'm gonna go TJ Parker as edge. And the reason why I'm doing this is because they've had such a problem generating pass rush pressure from the edge. They've not figured it out. They've thrown so many resources at it, and Booker could still be that guy. But and I know he's a third rusher or fourth rusher. Wouldn't you want to take a chance on a guy like TJ Parker who has a ton of upside and could add to like a 2-3 layer rush? Like that can immediately upgrade his entire defense rather than hope that he automatically replaces outside Sweat and that's it. Like the ideal circumstance is Austin Booker and TJ Parker just become really, really good at the same time across with Montez Sweat, and then you can mix and match it. So we're not doing this to replace Dio Odengbo. It'd be nice, but we're doing this so we can get better pressure overall. So we're not relying on Dio or Austin to be healthy and productive, which was a problem last season. We were too reliant on the opposite side being a free agent or a draft pick and not throwing everything at the wall. And I think you have to invest a first-round pick in a guy like him. Given that you just invested in Shamar Turner last season, you invested in Gallimore this free agency. Dexter and Jared have talent, but I think they need more time before we could say they were abject failures in investment. And I think it could, and this is just one pick. You could certainly upgrade much later in the draft because you got an additional second round from the Shamar trade.
Yeah, I think that pick is really reliant on Grady Jarrett having a bounce back here because like even when Jarrett was like when Jarrett was even playing, like he did not play really good at all. And so you really need him to like be good because I think Grady, like good interior presence, whether it be as like a run stopper or even as a pass rusher, right? Like I think it really opens up how the rest of the pass rush and like blitzing can go for this team, just because it's like you gotta like be focused on like you have to be focused on Grady Jarrett, but except last season when he really sucked and you really didn't need to put too much like effort into dealing with Jarrett, despite I think we were both excited for the potential that Grady Jarrett had going into last season because he was considered one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league at that point. And so, yeah, I mean, I think either way, getting who you think is the next best pass rusher or one of the better interior defensive linemen is kind of the direction that the Bears have to go. Because I think your secondary will be looking good enough. Your off-ball linebackers, I think, are solid.
They're much better than last year,
right? And then you have like at the very least average pass rushers on this team, but then it really is you have below average interior defensive linemen, namely just your defensive tackles, which is the scariest part I think about being the Bears team.
Yeah, I mean, and to give some more flavor to this, TJ Parker's a really, really good run defender. But the thing is, he has upside as a pass rusher, whereas Caden McDonald, we don't know that yet. And I feel like if you make the mistake of drafting Caden McDonald, you're just saying we need to draft somebody to replace JD Garrett in case he sucks again. And where I think the philosophy should be is let's just upgrade the entire unit with guys that specialize in specific areas that'd be mean. And if they decide Kenny McDonald does that for run defense, despite them already having Jarrett, Dexter, Shamar Turner, Gallimore, make the pick. But you just need somebody that can dominate in one area outside of Sweat. And it will involve like multiple picks in the draft. They have a lot in the top 60, but you need to strategy. Don't just pick the defensive tackle that becomes available. You need a lot of seats in there. All right.
Yeah, so it's kind of how the team sees the personal fit. Because I mean, if, like hypothetically, McDonald can fill like a Dexter Lawrence role. You know, maybe they trade for Dexter. If would you trade that pick for Dexter Lawrence?
No,
not
at the state the Bears are in, because they made that mistake with Mac, and they put themselves in a hole where they're fully relying on that pick to pan out, even though it was like a year too early when they're reasonably available to compete. And I think you run the same mistake if you make that move for Dexter Lawrence. I think you hold on, and I think you count on your depth of the line if you don't have the talent.
Yeah.
And I think a year in the scheme of Dennis Allen's scheme, the players will be a lot better in that regard. But then you also look for opportunities to improve in the draft with talent. And I think you can get that in the draft somewhere. It's just a matter of like, will the Bears be aggressive enough to attack it and make it a priority to do it?
Yeah. I just bring that up because, I mean, Dexter Lawrence age-wise is a bit younger than Grady Jarrett. So, like, hypothetically, Jarrett could be just on the physical decline as a defensive lineman compared to how Dexter Lawrence is. And Dexter Lawrence has proven time and time again to be one of the best run-stopping nose tackles in the league. Plus, he has pretty high pass rush upside when required of him. So that was just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I just think what you're giving up to get that,
just one first round pick.
Well, if it's just one first round pick,
like okay,
definitely worth it. But I don't think that's what the Giants are asking for.
Yeah. How about a first this year and like a third next year? I mean, now we're kind of doing hypotheticals, but like something like that.
I would be intrigued. The tough part is you don't really want to give up assets next year, like in the top 90. So you're making a bet on Lawrence again, because a lot of guys are going to slip with the amount of quarterback craziness that's going to happen next year. And if you're the Bears, you have to have a serious discussion on that. But I do think that's a lot better than what I was thinking he was commanding, which is like 2 first-round picks of like first-round pick and a high second or first-round pick and a major play. I'm like, Bears shouldn't even try to sniff that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have seen like your level of intrigue for Dexter Lawrence, because I think part of it too is the fact that Lawrence has said he wanted out in the first place. I think inherently drives some of the price a little bit down, especially, and also depends on like the parties that are asking too. Because I mean, there's probably a team that might be willing to give up 2 firsts for that, but what team? I mean, I don't know. It's like giving up 2 firsts. You got to be, for a guy like Dexter Lawrence as well, I think you got to be in a winning position first and foremost as a team, you know? And so it's like, what other teams that are late 20s picks are going to be offering 2 first-rounders for Dexter Lawrence? And I think of all the teams in that range, Bears probably benefit the most from a guy like Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, I could say Buffalo and like Texans. Buffalo might be the closest team, but I would argue the Bears have the bigger need.
Yeah.
Like, because Buffalo has Ed Oliver. The Bears haven't even picked like a talent like that from the draft in so long. They're so close to Aaron Donald. They passed up to Jalen Carter. They haven't been able to value that position well.
Yeah. But I was just curious because I was like, he's a guy potentially on the trade block. A late first round pick isn't always like the sure thing, you know, that I think a lot of people like to fantasize about later first round picks. And so
just look at what happened to Michael Parsons in Green Bay. Like, all of a sudden they're under the gun for this year, and they've lost their defensive coordinator, a ton of players, and like, do we consider Green Bay in the Super Bowl window now? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But they made that trade for Micah to get into the Super Bowl conversation. So it's like you have to have a serious conversation of like, are we set up if we make this move that we can make up the deficit of the picks to keep this team in a sustainable position?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Like the Broncos making the trade for Waddle fully makes sense. Fully makes sense because they're in the NFC Championship game. They know where their weaknesses are. Like this is just one step closer, and they're in a place where they can take on that risk, and it won't bite them. But a team like I don't want the Bears to fall into like a team like Green Bay, where it's like they have one flash in the pan, and all of a sudden we're going to the Super Bowl next year without a clear plan of like what happens after that. Are we still in playoff contention? So, all right, who you got for Buffalo?
Buffalo, I'll have them going Keldrick Falk, the other edge rusher. And there, it's like, I mean, you got Greg Rousseau. I mean, you did technically pick up Bradley Chubb, but like, again, these are guys that I don't think really push them too far forward. I mean, a Bradley Chubb resurgence could potentially happen, but I don't anticipate that happening. So again, as a later first round pick, I don't mind getting a temporarily rotational edge rusher that could be a starter within the next year or two.
A few fun facts as I Googled him in the last 10 seconds. I didn't watch this player at all, but things I found fascinating. He's 20 years old. He's better as a defensive lineman. He had 45 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. But he reportedly squatted 700 pounds and benched 415. If that's not freak athlete, I don't know what is. 6'6", 275, 20 years old. Squatted 700 pounds.
Right? Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, that would be a huge get for Buffalo. Like if he plays up to his potential.
Yeah. And so like I feel like that's a guy that like works with how like again how I said like Buffalo is, where he's not a guy that needs to immediately start and can be put in rotationally at least for the first year or two until he kind of figures things out and then can start. And like again, a pass rusher late in the first round, kind of with that trajectory, I don't think is really the most outlandish thing to hear either.
Okay. All right. So that leaves the 49ers.
Yes.
I don't mind the receivers. I could see them go Denzel Boston. I know offensive line is like, but at this point, it's hard to find good offensive linemen. You got Pregnon. Could be interesting. I'm going to completely scratch all of that. Kenyon Sadiq is still on the board. This is the one location I think he should go. Like from like the other is the Rams, but the Rams already have like a boatload of tight ends. George Kittle's 32. Didn't really have a lot of options when he was hurt combined with the weapons. And this is a guy who's in a trusted system with Kyle Shanahan. He can develop. We can see how one of the top tight ends of this decade has done it. And he gives Brock Purdy another athletic guy to worry about, opposite of Mike Evans, opposite of McCaffrey. 2 tight end sets are going to be lethal. And I like Jake Tongas, but I don't think you could pass this up at this point in the draft. I get tackles a question mark because you don't know how long Trent Williams would continue playing. But there's not many guys like Kenyon Sadiq with the athletic upside that you can pass up on. So I think this is the one location where it's like, as an athletic talent, this would be an area he would thrive in rather than have to figure out how to be a professional.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, it'll be interesting to see how he fits in, especially like I feel like the 49ers for the past, it almost feels like 8-ish years now, right, have been known to be a very physical team. Like I mean, you think of Deebo Samuel was a very physical player. Brandon Ayuk's very physical. George Kittle's a very physical guy. McCaffrey, I mean, he gets hurt every other year, but I don't know. I think of even they run their guys really hard, and so it'll be cool to see how a guy like Sadiq fits, and when I feel like his play style is so different compared to what we've seen a lot of these 49ers players so far. But I like what you said. I think Shanahan is the type of offensive mind to really figure out how to incorporate a guy as unique as Kenyon Sadiq. And even if he doesn't really play at all year one, I think this is one of those teams that is more okay with maybe not even having him play all too many snaps in his first season, just because they have, again, 3 to 4-ish startable wide receivers and at least 1 to 2-ish, not really, but solid tight ends. Plus, you got Juszczyk at the fullback position who can play out of a tight end set too, And so
he can play everywhere.
Yeah, and so Sadiq is really a guy that I think can find interesting spots within this offense to really find opportunities to make plays using his unique physicality. Okay. Next, we got the Houston Texans. Here, I'm intrigued as to who I want them to take. I mean, the recommendations are the defensive tackles. So maybe I'd go with that. I know you could always go with an offensive lineman here too if you're the Texans, but I think just looking at the team comp, does Caden McDonald make the most sense here for them, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
I think because you got really, really good pass rushers on the outside. Pass rush is not an issue for you. It's the stop and the run that you would need to figure out. And I can undo it if you didn't want Caden McDonald.
No, let's go with that. Let's go with that. I should have had them draft Ty Simpson, have a quarterback battle.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of questions after the playoff game, but I'm a Stroud believer. I have to be. I haven't invested too much in him in Dynasty. But yeah, I mean, it's a good fit. This is another example of a good system fit. DeMeco Ryans will figure out how to maximize the most out of Caden McDonald. He's behind Rankins and Togiai. Solid players, but Caden McDonald has the upside to be better than both. Inside of Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter is almost unfair. How loaded the Texans defense is. I probably would have gone offensive line personally because I don't know if I trust Evan Brown. I know they invested a lot in Teller and Braden Smith, late in free agency. We talked about it, but I do think more is there, more is needed. I could have talked myself into Jadarian Price here. He's not high on my board, but he's kind of one of those safe players where it's I could see him, Marks, and Montgomery form a nice trio, but it's not needed at this stage. I think you can get running back later, and it's not an urgent need here. So I like the pick.
Yeah. And I think the reservation drafting offline here is when the draft was playing quarterback position, this Mills, I for a second. Most of the he put together a solid offense. You might have some weaknesses here and there. The offense was there is a world where the offense is able to function really efficiently with what they had last season, and which kind of was imagine bolstering that defense that much more heading into this season is kind of how I thought about it. But yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is just the first of many picks. Who's to say they're not going to invest in running back or offensive line later? So yeah, I see the vision.
Cool.
All right. How do I make Corstian's life miserable here?
Mm.
We got edge defender DB. Avion Terrell.
Mm.
Not a bad selection here. And I know, who did I pick for KC last time?
You had the safety,
Caleb
Downs.
Okay. So we could go Terrell here. That would make perfect sense. I'm also looking at the receivers. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton.
Mm.
They sometimes play great. But wouldn't it be better if we just added one more weapon for Patrick Mahomes / Justin Fields?
Yeah.
And Denzel Boston.
Denzel.
It's a very Chiefs move to make. Like, they have a clear need, but you know what? We're just gonna make the offense more unfair. And it's a big need for them too. Like, they didn't have a lot of options once Rashee Rice went down and Patrick Mahomes went down, and like Xavier Worthy got hurt at the beginning of the year. I was gutted because I thought he was going to have a really big year. Just add one more to the mix. Travis Kelce's getting older. Like, this is I think you got to go Boston here.
Right. Yeah. I'll just bring into the question of like the whole late first round hit rates. So, maybe this does help the Broncos out if it's a unsuccessful late first round wide receiver. But anyways, going on to Miami's pick here. I will have them go CJ Allen. I mean, the Dolphins are really in a position where it's like you could draft anything except center, running back, and I guess quarterback with Mendoza off the board, right? And so it's like you basically get a clear star, or at least a guy that I think should be a star off-ball linebacker here, who can essentially be like the commander of your defense for the next 10 years if he pans out, which I think which will be good, whether regardless of what stage your offense might be in, or I guess Whereas I feel like I don't know with secondary members, obviously I think they could go with cornerback or safety here too, but I feel like we see those guys almost fall off a cliff more sooner than we do sometimes with just off-ball linebackers. I think of Levante David, right, who for his entire career has been one of the best off-ball linebackers, and he's gone through really 3 phases of this team, or the Buccaneers team, where he had the hodgepodge of quarterbacks, kind of with Jameis Winston. Oh my gosh, I guess Ryan Fitzpatrick's in that mix. There's a guy from I can't remember his name, which is disappointing, but there's a couple other guys in that mix that I guess Mike Glennon was in that mix, But anyways, you have that.
You mentioned Jameis?
Yeah.
Who else?
Right. There's a guy off the top, something there might have been a something Palmer as a quarterback in 2012, but I don't know if he was in. I think that was probably around right when Levante David was in the league. But anyways, might have been Josh Palmer, maybe, I don't know.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, just oh my gosh, Palmer QB. Buccaneers. Dude, who's okay? And
Josh Freeman?
It might have been, and then it was Josh Freeman.
Forgot about him.
Yeah, but I remember he was kind of a half mobile quarterback way back when. Right.
Why don't
And
we
then
start talking about Tampa Bay QBs? I'm really curious. This
Well, I was
draft
talking
is
about
like
like
real.
Levante David's longevity, and so it's like
I see.
that versus you have what's the dude's name? I mean, I think of like, I mean, they're an injury prone organization, but it is the Chargers secondary, right? Where it's like you have a bunch of guys that are good for like a rookie contract plus like 2 seasons, not even like I mean, some of them from the Packers. You had like Casey Hayward, who's from the Packers, went to the Chargers, couldn't stay healthy. They had that one dude's son is the cornerback who they didn't even re-sign now, like a year ago.
Oh, Asante Samuel Jr.
Asante Samuel, like guys who were good, but just like the cornerback longevity, I feel like just feels a lot shorter. And the Campbell name was Jason Campbell from the Washington Redskins in 2008 and 2009. So I was mixing up
How
those
dare you utter their old name?
That's what they were called back then. That's not what they were back then. Anyways. So that's my point, though, with getting a solid off-ball linebacker here for the Dolphins. You get a guy who...
And he was sitting on the board for a while. Just get the best players you can and, like, get another linebacker for Jeff Hafley's scheme.
Mm-hmm.
You don't lose anything by picking him versus any other picks. You're just... Mm-hmm. If it were me, I would probably go Terrell just because I think he's a slightly better player regardless of position. But I don't hate the pick.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm banging the gavel because you picked him. So
yeah. And with that, it's like the linebacker can be negatively affected, obviously, by the rest of the team, but like he can kind of stands alone on like what he does versus a good cornerback on a team that the rest of the defense sucks. It's like there's only so much a lockdown corner can do when the rest of the defense sucks, and his impact will be less seen when your team's completely rebuilding. And so that's part of the pick too. But anyways, Patriots, who you got?
I disagree with their needs. I mean, maybe tackle, but like I wouldn't give up on Will Campbell. I know he got a lot of heat. Super Bowl. Morgan Moses, reliable tackle. Maybe we can consider upgrade here. D lineman. I mean, you got maybe nose tackle, but like I like Milton Williams, Barn, but they went to the Super Bowl for a reason. They had a really, really good overall team. Like, even the linemen, like Ellis, Spillane, and Landry, they're good. Like don't have any problems with them. I want to say Terrell, but like, why would they need him? Like, so that leaves me with like we could go Cassius Howell, Caleb Banks. Can take a chance on him. Pregnone, if you want to upgrade from Vera Tucker, Amon, who I like a little bit. Ty Simpson. No. Chris Bell, I like. I don't. I'm going to go Skylar Bell out of Connecticut.
Okay.
Why? He's a different player than what you have in your set. Because think about it. You have Dobbs, you have Booty, you have Hollins. Hollins and Booty win primarily on the outer edges of the field. And so does Dobbs. Like, they're good in, like, contested catch situations. But you don't really have, like, a guy that can win with quickness outside of Mario Douglas. And I think you could get a slightly better player than Demario Douglas with the Skylar Bell guy. I'm trying to pull up his scouting report to try and recall like what I remember about him. Small school, but I think what you need is like a good route runner himself. Like he's really good at like stacking and causing the defender to go to the opposite direction. Good start-stop ability, can execute with short area quickness. You need a guy like that. Like they don't necessarily have a receiver. Like they have one in Stephon Diggs, but they're not. So I think it's that point where you look at the roster and be like, what do we not have as first like a full group of offense? Like Kai Williams showed some flashes, but then a lot of drops. And I think wide receiver is the need here. So this is just we don't have many options. Let's go here. You could sell me on D'Angelo Ponds just to make that secondary even more unfair. But I do think wide receiver is a big need where, like, if they guess incorrectly, it could spell for him. So
yeah. Last pick. With here, there's like 2 routes I could see them going here. One of them is going someone in the secondary. They just took I think a couple, not a lot, but like a few losses I think over the course of free agency in terms of like the defensive backs. And then 2 would be another running back at the end of the first round here. That's mainly, I mean, you lose your Super Bowl MVP in free agency. There's a lot of hype around Zach Charbonnet. You bring in Emmanuel Wilson, who is a solid running back 2 kind of player, can be a decent change of pace guy. And so that's kind of like the reservation there. But it's like, how many, like, what, like, what, like Seahawks only have like the 1 pick in each round, right? Like, yeah, I think it's.
you just see their picks.
Yeah, I think they own like. I think they just got the 1 in the first and 1 in the second, and so I'll have them go. As annoying as it'll be to see for a lot of people, I'll have them go Jadarian Price.
I feel like I've seen this so many times in mocks.
And I mean, like, that's kind of like what the Seahawks have been like really good at, though. With having 2 good running backs that they're able to field pretty much interchangeably, to be able to, like, just to basically grind down whatever defenses that they go against. And so, it was like that, or it was Terrell. And so I think
I would have considered D'Angelo Ponds, actually.
Mhm.
Like, either Terrell or Ponds, like, because you got Josh Joby at the nickel, like, and there's nobody behind him in the depth chart. That would have probably been a perfect guy to develop, or offensive line. Yeah, they just won the Super Bowl, so there's not really many gaps in the roster.
Right.
I think they correctly picked which one that is. This is just me being nitpicking and being like, I know who the backs are.
Yeah.
You get later in the 3rd, 4th round.
Mhm.
Why get him when you can get a guy like Miles Montgomery in the 6th round? Like, just throwing names out there. Like,
Right.
And you can get a D'Angelo Ponds. So okay, we like Price, safe. We know what we're getting out of him. But where are opportunities where we can get greedy and just completely make this a dynasty?
Yeah.
I think that's what you got to look at too. But I'm not losing sleep over the fact you picked Jadarian Price over cornerback. I agree with the logic there.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, defense as a whole is phenomenal still, and it's like you got Devon Witherspoon, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I mean, like, Julian Love's good. Nick Amon is arguably going into year 2 is arguably one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the entirety of the league. And so, like,
Cooper DeJean would like a word with that, but okay.
Yeah, Amon better, but yeah,
I'd agree. All righty.
Cool.
Yeah, those are our picks. We'll post them on the channel for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. We know this is a super, extremely long episode, so if you're still watching, why? But thanks for spending that much of time listening to 2 idiots think about what their picks will be. But, of course, yeah. Any final words before we let the people go?
What? Peace out.